Oh, how are you? How are you doing? I gotta do one, two, three, four. It's in English. How are you? Hello, where are you? On the name of Jesus Christ, enter in the temple of your heart, enter in the temple of your heart, Jesus Christ. Oh, the news, Australian news.
Scammers and dodgy middlemen sell Indonesians a way to win. War for an Australian visa. ABC News. News. Read the story in Bahasa Indonesia. Fraudsters and intermediaries claiming to have access to Indonesian immigration officials have been scamming workers eager to come to Australia. There are tens of thousands of young Indonesians who are keen to apply for a work and holiday visa WHV, but there are only 5,000. Scammers and dodgy middlemen sell Indonesians a way to win. War for an Australian visa. ABC News. Scammers and dodgy middlemen sell Indonesians a way to win. War for an Australian visa. ABC News. Read the story in Bahasa Indonesia. Fraudsters and intermediaries claiming to have access to Indonesian immigration officials have been scamming workers eager to come to Australia. There are tens of thousands of young Indonesians who are keen to apply for a work and holiday visa WHV, but there are only 5,000 up for grabs per year. As part of the requirements of the WHV application, they need to supply Australian officials with a referral letter known as an SDU-WHV from Indonesia's Directorate General of Immigration. Competition for the letters is fierce and the online application process has come to be known in Indonesia as a war, but for the right amount of money. People have been promised a way to win. The ABC has been told that middlemen have claimed to be able to arrange for SDU-WHV letters to be supplied by immigration officials. Scammers have also seen how lucrative it can be to exploit the process. SDU-WHV letters are meant to be free but require applicants to have $5,000 in savings and submit documents such as ID, education levels and English language certification. Success for a price. One of the young Indonesians hoping to move to Australia on a WHV is Agus, not his real name. He worked for 7 years to save $5,000, in between finishing his university studies and paying for his siblings to go to school. On October 15th, online applications for the SDU-WHV opened and Agus was at his computer ready to lodge the required documents. But the system was down and he was unable to obtain the letter. Agus was then offered help from someone who claimed they could use their connections into the immigration department to arrange the letter, for a price. He asked for 60 million rupiah, $5,500, but I told him I don't have that much money, he said. Then he lowered the price to 45 million rupiah, $4,100, but I really didn't have that amount and didn't want to get the letter that way. The ABC has heard a recorded conversation between Agus and the person who said they could arrange an SDU-WHV for him. The middleman also claimed that only 40% of the SDU-WHV quota in the online war was genuinely up for grabs. The majority had already been reserved for those who had paid. In the conversation, the middleman said that the immigration office would provide the referral letter after payment was made. On the day of the war, I panicked and called him to ask why the war was so messy, Agus said. He said, "What are you doing the war for? Everything has been set up, the names have been selected. Just send your passport and I will cross-check with the person who was connected to someone in the immigration office." WHV conditions for Indonesians applicants. Be 18 to 30 years old. Have a tertiary qualification, degree, graduate certificate or diploma, or have studied at university for 2 years. Have evidence of English language proficiency. Letter of support SDU-WHV. Passport valid for at least 12 months. No dependent children coming with. Proof of at least $5,000 in the bank. Meet health and character requirements. Not had visa cancelled or application.
This is the things that are gonna must or happen already. Very sad, very stupid. I don't understand it. Why Australia and all these things, you listen to it. I don't listen to it.
Application refused. Sign the Australian Values Statement. Source, Home Affairs Department. To convince Agus to use his services, the middleman sent him a list of 125 people who he claimed had successfully obtained the letter through him. The ABC has contacted about half of the people on the list and tracked 2 who appeared to be living in Australia. The 6 who replied to the ABC's inquiries said they failed to get the SDU-WHV. The ABC also contacted the middleman. When asked what services or assistance he provided to those seeking an SDU-WHV, he said he only offered moral support and encouragement and claimed to know nothing about any insider involvement. Agus said he felt lost after failing to get his letter of recommendation despite his hard work of saving and trying to apply through the correct channels. I feel betrayed by my own country, he said. Agus said the online SDU-WHV application process needed to be overhauled. The immigration office has killed thousands of young people's dreams of working in Australia, he said. Scammers target hopeful applicants. Linda said she paid an agent $2,000 for an SDU-WHV before WHV applications opened last year. In January she found out she was not successful because, according to the refusal letter from Home Affairs, she had given a bogus document. I got scared, confused, and did not know what to do, she told the ABC. She went back to the person who had sold her the SDUWHP and asked him what to do. He replied, "It's okay, this is normal," Linda said. She wanted to apply for a WHP again in May but got a notification from Home Affairs that her application might be rejected. Linda, who requested a pseudonym, said she was intimidated and verbally abused after confronting the scammer who had sold her the fake SDUWHP. The ABC has spoken with other victims of this scam. We were threatened not to report to the police if we wanted our money back, one victim said. No oversight of applications. Besides Indonesia, WHP applicants from Ecuador, Greece, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Mongolia, Peru, Poland, San Marino, Slovenia, Thailand and Turkey are also required to provide a government support letter. In Indonesia, getting an SDUWHP letter is like buying a ticket for a popular concert, first come, first served. SDUWHP applicants are supposed to apply themselves and the Indonesian government has introduced measures to verify identification during the process. However, some agents have ignored this requirement and have charged people for the chance to get one without having to log on for the war. Priscilla paid an agent $3,000 to get hers in 2019. The agent also had offered to find her a job and a place to live for an extra cost, which she declined. Priscilla thought that was the way to secure a WHP and said she felt bad for using a shortcut without doing enough research. When I met other WHP holders in Australia, I realized everybody had applied and done the war themselves, she said. I literally had no idea. The other WHP holders had to put in an effort while we took a shortcut by paying an agent. Indonesian Ministry of Immigration Special Staff Abdullah Razid told the ABC that any agents or institutions offering SDUWHP war services should be reported to the ministry. Findings, along with evidence, will be followed up to identify those profiting from and committing fraud, he said. This year's online war for referral letters was so problematic that concerns raised by participants has led to a hearing with Indonesian politicians. Calls for Australia to manage visa process. Idiwa Nyoman Rai is one of the thousands who signed a petition that brought wider attention to the matter. He was part of a group that met with members of parliament on November 17 to discuss the issues they had encountered. On the 15th of October, the quota had only been filled by 80 people, Diwa said, referring to the day applications opened. On the 17th of October, the application button was missing, and the website was completely inaccessible until 4 p.m. However,
World record, world record, world record, world record, world record, world record. Question this news.
By then, the quota had suddenly jumped to 4,700. He said instead of a war where everyone had a chance for an SDUWHP, only some with an invitation were able to apply. Those who got access were only those who received an email and access from immigration, he said. Mr. Razid told the ABC that emails were only sent to applicants who had successfully entered the filing stage, but were unable to proceed because of server issues. More than 3,000 people lodged official complaints with the immigration agency, which has apologized for technical mishaps. Directorate General of Immigration head Yuldi Usman has denied allegations about middlemen working between his department and applicants. We will do an internal investigation to verify the information so there is no slander against us, he said. MP Sugiat Santoso said the war system to obtain the referral letter was inappropriate, even though it has been in place for years. If the system remains as it is, two possible outcomes could occur. First, if immigration's IT infrastructure is inadequate for this war, the system may fail, he said. Second, if the quota can be easily traded because there is no systemic oversight. Another MP, Mafurian, said next year Indonesia should not be involved in the process at all. We ask the Australian embassy to handle it, he said. That is the best way because they are the ones who issue the visa, so let it be like applying for an Australian visa in general. People can apply directly to them, and they decide who is eligible and who is not. Mr. Razid, from the Ministry of Immigration, told the ABC the SDUWHP letter system was in place at the request of the Australian embassy, as was the quota of 5,000 that are issued. The MPs also urged anyone who has knowledge of any misconduct related to the letter obtainment process to report it to police. A new migration expert Alan Gamlin said Australia processed WHP applications for some countries. But given Indonesia's size and its lower wage levels relative to Australia, demand could easily overwhelm Australian processing capacity, Professor Gamlin told the ABC. Requiring a letter of support effectively delegates the first stage of screening to Indonesia, which likely saves Australia significant time and resources. He said Indonesia could look at replacing the SDUWHP process with a random balloter by having a wealth threshold. In a statement to the ABC, the Department of Home Affairs said it took allegations of misconduct seriously. The department is working with the Indonesian Directorate General of Immigration to encourage visa applicants to report any allegations of wrongdoing, including scam agents engaging in immigration fraud and exploiting visa applicants, a spokesperson said. When asked about whether Australia should step in to handle the process, the department said, the government monitors work holidaymaker activity to assess whether any changes to process would be appropriate for partner countries, including Indonesia.
Shit. There you go.
Unwelcome tidings from the government as signs emerge of a budget under pressure. And for the first time since Labor came to office, talk of serious public service cuts.
Winter is coming on a range of fronts.
Finance Minister Katie Gallagher responding to a report the government has ordered departments to find savings of as much as 5%.
What we have asked agencies to do is think about all the things they're doing, all the programs they administer, and to consider whether they are still priorities.
With the budget forecast to stay in deficit for a decade and less likelihood of more free kicks from global commodity revenue, there's in
Coalition, or does it want to deal with the Greens?
Look, I think you're right. There's been no obvious progression, but it resembles ducks on a pond underneath the surface. Everyone's paddling furiously. The government is still talking to both sides. Both sides, being the Greens and the Coalition, are the pathways. Now, it's a good question as to which side the government actually really wants to land a deal with. There are serious upsides and downsides no matter what it does. Now, the question is, can they get the coalition over the line? That's increasingly starting to have a real question mark over it. Their level of willingness to solve this problem for the government has always been, in my mind, a serious question. The Greens are being offered, by contrast,
SBS live streams and podcasts are supported by advertising.
In this bulletin, fire warnings across Tasmania and New South Wales. Victoria's tough-on-crime laws pass both houses of Parliament. And in football, fans gather ahead of the FIFA 2026 World Cup draw, with 48 teams in the mix for the first time. With the latest from the SBS newsroom, I'm Camille Bianchi. Bushfires continue to burn across large parts of Australia, damaging properties in Tasmania and closing the Pacific Motorway in New South Wales. The M1 is closed in both directions between Nabiac and 12 Mile Creek, with nearby residents advised to seek shelter because it's too late to leave. The New South Wales Rural Fire Service is currently tracking 70 incidents, while authorities in Tasmania are monitoring 18 fires. Tasmania Fire Services Commissioner Jeremy Smith says 19 homes and shacks have already been damaged in Dolphin Sands.
These conditions are or were extremely challenging for firefighters. We had well over 100-kilometre winds, and fires under those conditions are extremely difficult to control, combat and extinguish. That is why it is so important for the community to listen to the warnings, the messages and the briefings from emergency responders.
Authorities in New South Wales have issued heatwave warnings that will remain in place until the 6th of December across much of the state, amid a significant uptick in 000 calls. The New South Wales Ambulance Service says the elderly, young children, pregnant women and people experiencing social isolation are especially vulnerable to heat sickness. Chief Superintendent Steve Vaughan says rising temperatures have already increased pressure on the health system.
On Wednesday, New South Wales Ambulance received around 3,500 000 calls for assistance. And yesterday, we saw an increase in that number up to 3,800 000 calls. And today, we're expecting to see over 4,000 000 calls for medical assistance.
Victoria's so-called adult time for violent crime laws have passed both houses of Parliament, meaning children as young as 14 could now face life behind bars. Minors can now face a life sentence for violent crimes, including home invasion, carjacking, and armed robbery, in a move that mirrors similar laws in Queensland. Lawyers, advocates for Aboriginal people and human rights groups have opposed the measures, arguing the punitive laws will be ineffective at reducing crime. Yesterday, Youth Justice Minister Enver Erdogan told Parliament the community expects stronger measures.
This bill is necessary to address compelling and pressing community safety concerns brought about by unprecedented incidents of serious and violent offending by young people. So we believe that overall the priority of community safety needs to come first, and that's what we're focused on today.
Victoria Police have shifted their search efforts to locating the body of alleged police killer Desi Freeman, after spending days meticulously combing through Mount Buffalo National Park. Freeman has been on the run after allegedly shooting dead two police officers, Neil Thompson and Vadim Devat Hotard, while they served a warrant at his home in Porpunka. Hundreds of police have been involved in the manhunt, with more than 400 officers deployed in the hours, days and weeks after the killings on the 26th of August. The latest search involves specialist resources, including cadaver search dogs and drones. The leader of the South Australian Liberal Party has announced his resignation, citing family reasons, saying he will continue to represent his electorate of Hartley. Vincent Tarzia says he wasn't pushed to go, and he intends to throw his support behind the next leader, who is yet to be chosen by the party room. It marks the third leadership change in a state Liberal Party in less than 3 weeks, with Victoria and New South Wales also seeing change at the top. Announcing his resignation, Mr Tarzia thanked his colleagues and said he only arrived at the decision this morning.
It's probably a decision that I arrived at this morning, and I discussed it with my family and some of my key supporters and party members, and I arrived at it today. And it's been a challenging day, but I'm looking forward now to getting on with it and supporting the next leader of the Liberal Party, but at the same time supporting my very young family at home and making sure I do everything possible to be returned as the member for Hartley, which I really enjoy most of all.
To sport now, and in football. In coming hours, the US will host Canada and Mexico for the 2026 FIFA World Cup division draw, after the countries made a joint bid to host the tournament in 2017. For the first time in history, an unprecedented 48 nations will be divided into 12 groups of 4. Famous American athletes, NFL player Tom Brady, basketballer Shaquille O'Neal, baseballer Aaron Judge and Canadian ice hockey player Wayne Gretzky are each assigned a pot to pull the teams from at an event in Washington, D.C. Former England footballer and 2026 World Cup draw host Rio Ferdinand says it's a big moment.
It starts getting tasty, it starts getting tantalising, and you can start really feeling, where we're going to fit out. Look at the route to the final, semi-finals, the quarter-finals. So all of those aspects really start from here up on this stage, so I can't wait.
The World Cup kicks off in Mexico City on the 11th of June next year. And those are the latest headlines from the SBS Newsroom.
SBS Audio is supported by advertising. This Christmas, discover festive favorites at Harvey Norman. Gamers will love the latest gaming consoles. Tech fans, a sleek new smartphone. Active lifestyles, smartwatches and fitness trackers. Music lovers,
Olive oil to India. And in cricket, Australia built their lead. In this bulletin, Australia to face co-hosts the United States in next year's World Cup. Vladimir Putin promises the uninterrupted sale of oil to India. And in cricket, Australia build their lead in the second Ashes test against England. With the latest from the SBS newsroom, I'm Sunil Awasti. Australia has been drawn in the same group as co-hosts the United States for next year's Football World Cup. The draw for the tournament has been held in Washington in the presence of dignitaries including US President Donald Trump. Australia is in Group D next June alongside the US, Paraguay and the winner of next March's European playoff between Turkey, Romania, Slovakia and Kosovo. FIFA has clarified that exact dates, times and venues for each match will be confirmed tomorrow. The top two teams in each of the 12 groups, plus the 8 best-ranked third-placed teams, will make it to the knockout stage of the newly expanded 48-team Men's World Cup. US President Donald Trump has become the first-ever recipient of FIFA's Peace Prize at the 2026 World Cup draw. Gianni Infantino, the head of World Football's governing body and a close ally of the president, has presented Mr. Trump with the award during the ceremony in Washington. In accepting the award, Mr. Trump says it is one of the great honours of his life.
We saved millions and millions of lives. The Congo is an example, over 10 million people killed, and it was heading for another 10 million very quickly. And it just, the fact that we could do that, India, Pakistan, so many different wars that we're able to end, in some cases a little bit before they started, just right before they started. It was going to be late, but we got them done.
Mr. Infantino says Mr. Trump has won the award for exceptional and extraordinary actions to promote peace and unity around the world. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he is ready to continue uninterrupted shipments of fuel to India, in spite of heavy pressure from the United States for India to stop buying oil from Russia. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is hosting Mr. Putin at a summit in Delhi in his first visit to the country since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Mr. Putin has been given a red carpet welcome with an honour guard and a 21-gun salute. Mr. Putin says the countries have pledged to develop multifaceted relations and boost trade, in particular the supply of oil and gas. Dangerous fire conditions are set to continue across parts of eastern Australia, with fears dry lightning risks sparking new blazes. In Tasmania, authorities say it is not yet safe for residents affected by a fire at Dolphin Sands to return home after more than a dozen cars and buildings were damaged and 2 firefighters injured. But cooler temperatures and showers washing across the state today will likely bring some relief to fire crews. A fire on the New South Wales mid-north coast at Beulah has been downgraded but is not yet under control. Total fire bans are in place for much of New South Wales, with heat wave conditions set to remain throughout the day. In Victoria, firefighters are working to contain a bushfire in Markwood, northeast of Melbourne, which has affected at least 3 properties. The National Commissioner for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children and Young People has slammed Victoria's new adult time for violent crime laws. The legislation passed Parliament late on Thursday, allowing children as young as 14 to face life sentences for a number of violent crimes. These include home invasion, carjacking and armed robbery, with the legislation mirroring similar tough-on-crime reforms in Queensland. The Commissioner, Sue Ann Hunter, has told NITV that the laws breach Australia's human rights obligations and won't make the community safer.
Because we're not addressing the underlying issues of whatever that is for that child, whether it be a health issue, undiagnosed, whether it be family violence at home. If we don't intervene early, this will continue to happen. Each time we choose punishment over prevention, we compound their trauma, fuel reoffending and entrench the very behaviours we claim we want to stop as a society.
In cricket, Australia is on top after 2 days of the second Ashes test against England in Brisbane. After dismissing England for 334 in their first innings early on day 2, Australia is 6 for 378 in their own first innings. That's a lead of 44 runs with 4 wickets in hand entering day 3. The Australians, who scored at more than 5 runs per over, were helped by England dropping 4 catches in the final session. Opening batsman Jake Weatherald top scored for Australia, scoring 72. Marnus Labuschagne was second top score, getting 60 65. He's told Fox Cricket Australia have set themselves up to bowl at England in favourable conditions on the evening of day 3.
That was a crucial last hour there for us to get to the end of play, 6 down, gives us a bit of time in the morning in that day session, and then obviously pushes our bowling innings later into the night.
I'm Sunil Awasti. That's the latest from the SBS Newsroom.
This Christmas, discover festive favourites at Harvey Norman. Gamers will love the latest gaming consoles. Tech fans, a sleek new smartphone. This Christmas, discover festive favourites at Harvey Norman. Gamers will love the
heat waves and extreme fire danger threaten
premium hair care and styling tools from cutting-edge.
Total fire bans are in place across large parts of eastern New South Wales as a widespread heatwave and strong winds put fire authorities on alert. Crews are still trying to control a blaze at Bulladila, while a grass fire at Beanie has been contained. The Bureau of Meteorology is warning conditions will be particularly dangerous in Sydney, the Hunter and the Illawarra. In other parts of the country, heatwave warnings are also in place for northwestern Queensland, the Kimberley and the Pilbara in Western Australia, as well as parts of the Northern Territory. A fire at Dolphin Sands in Tasmania, which has destroyed more than a dozen buildings, has been downgraded to a watch and act warning, but the fire service is still urging residents not to return. A joint operation spearheaded by the Australian Federal Police has seen 11 children removed from harm in the Philippines and 3 people charged with child abuse offences. The investigation began after a Victorian man was allegedly found in possession of child abuse material at Melbourne Airport in September. He was charged with several offences, including the live streaming of abuse. A search of his home and devices by the Australian Federal Police and Victoria Police allegedly identified online further contact with individuals in the Philippines facilitating live streams. Acting on the intelligence provided by the AFP, the Philippines National Police has executed search warrants at 3 properties in Mati City, resulting in the removal of 11 children from harm. 2 women and a man were arrested for offences against the Anti-Online Sexual Abuse or Exploitation of Children Act. Australia has slapped further sanctions on 3 top Taliban officials and Afghanistan's Chief Justice as it moves to increase pressure on the militant group. The new measures prohibit Australians from supplying the listed individuals with arms or dealing with their assets and funds. Australia has already sanctioned 140 individuals and entities under the United Nations Security Council's Taliban framework. But the new listings will operate under a new autonomous sanctions framework for Afghanistan. Foreign Minister Penny Wong says that the Australian government remains deeply concerned about the deterioration of human rights in Afghanistan, particularly for women and girls. In the United States, a recommendation that all newborns receive a hepatitis B vaccine has been removed by an advisory panel appointed by the Trump administration. The policy, which has been in place for 35 years, aimed to prevent the unknowing transfer of Hep B in utero and had virtually eradicated infections of the potentially deadly liver disease among young people. The panel, appointed by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now recommends what it calls individual-based decision-making. The move was immediately condemned by several medical groups, including the American Academy of Pediatrics. Vaccine researcher and former government advisor Dr. Paul Offit says most people with chronic hepatitis B infection don't know they have it.
There's millions of people in this country who have chronic hepatitis B. You don't know whether or not you're coming in contact with someone like that. And if you're a child that comes in contact with that, say between 1 and 5 years of age, you have a roughly 25% chance of going on to develop cirrhosis, which is chronic liver disease, or liver cancer, which will shorten your life.
Germany's parliament has approved a controversial new military service law that leaves open the possibility of compulsory service. The legislation, which aims to boost the ranks of the armed forces, is a response to rising concern about Russian aggression. The law will introduce mandatory medical checks for young men and better paying conditions for voluntary recruits, but also leaves open an option to reintroduce conscription via random selection if needed, although a new vote by Parliament will be required for that. Streaming giant Netflix will buy film and television studio Warner Brothers in a deal worth $108 billion. The acquisition gives Netflix access to a vast film catalogue and is the entertainment industry's biggest consolidation deal this decade. The deal has been opposed by top names in Hollywood, such as Titanic director James Cameron, and will face scrutiny from regulatory authorities in both Europe and the US. The boards of both firms say they want to finalise the sale in 12 to 18 months. Socceroos coach Tony Popovich says he's pleased to have been drawn against co-hosts the United States in next year's World Cup. Australia will play in Group D, facing the US, Paraguay, and the winner of a four-team European playoff between Turkey, Kosovo, Romania and Slovakia. Popovich says playing against the US in their own country leans into the Aussie view of themselves as plucky underdogs.
No, I'm actually excited about having that because it increases the challenge. The focus obviously be on the US team. The whole country will be behind them, and we've always punched well above our weight.
The exact dates, times and venues for the group stage will be confirmed tomorrow, but it is known Australia will be based on the west coast of North America. The likely schedule is the game against the European side on June the 14th in Vancouver, followed by the game against the US on June the 20th in Seattle, and the game against Paraguay on June the 25th in Santa Clara, just outside San Francisco. I'm Sunil Awasti. That's the latest from the SBS Newsroom.
There you go. Upa, upa, upa. Upa, 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 palupa. Upa, 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 palupa. Oh, you go like this for the World Cup, for the World Cup.
I've just watched the World Cup draw live from Washington, D.C., so that you didn't have to. Here are 3 takeaways for you. Donald Trump was obviously there, very much at the forefront of things. He received, to nobody's surprise, the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize. Whether or not you think FIFA should be putting itself in a position to give out peace prizes is one matter. Whether you think Donald Trump should have been the recipient of it is another. He was given it by a radiant and delighted Gianni Infantino. It certainly set a bit of a tone for the event. If Donald Trump likes being the centre of attention, then I know someone else who does, and that is Cristiano Ronaldo, who we thought was going to be out of action for maybe the first couple of games of this tournament, but to a lot of people's surprise, will not be suspended and is free to play for Portugal in what must be his last World Cup now. England, who of course are one of the big favourites under Thomas Tuchel, they won't be complaining too much with their group. It is Croatia, Panama and Ghana. I think the name Croatia scares people a little bit. This isn't quite the side that we saw in 2022, definitely not the side we saw in 2018. But I think Thomas Tuchel will, all things considered, not be unhappy with that at all.
Three takeaways from the World Cup 2026 draw. Video World Cup 2026 The Guardian. England will face a rematch of their 2018 semi-final in the opening fixture of their World Cup campaign next summer. After they were drawn alongside Croatia in Group L. England will also play Panama, another side they faced at the Russia World Cup, and Ghana. At the draw in Washington, D.C., which lasted more than 2 hours after 90 minutes of preamble, there were a number of strong groups selected. Scotland will also face a partial repeat of their last World Cup campaign in 1998 after they were drawn alongside Brazil and Morocco, as well as Haiti. In Group C, the most prominent candidate for the title of Group of Death is Group 1, where the seeds France are joined by Senegal and Erling Haaland's Norway alongside. The winner of an international playoff, USA face Australia, Paraguay and a European playoff winner. Here's our Nick Ames with his takeaways from the draw. Three takeaways from the World Cup 2026 draw. Video World Cup 2026 The Guardian. England will face a rematch of their 2018 semi-final in the opening fixture of their World Cup campaign next summer. After they were drawn alongside Croatia in Group L. England will also play Panama, another side they faced at the Russia World Cup, and Ghana. At the draw in Washington, D.C., which lasted more than 2 hours after 90 minutes of preamble, there were a number of strong groups selected. Scotland will also face a partial repeat of their last World Cup campaign in 1998 after they were drawn alongside Brazil and Morocco, as well as Haiti.
All right.
Socceroos should not be overawed by World Cup group that plays to their strengths. World Cup 2026 The Guardian. All things considered, Australia's draw for the 2026 World Cup can't be described as simple. But it's also fair to say that things could have gone a lot worse. And at an expanded, 48-team tournament, it is a group that the Socceroos should not be overawed by. At the end of a sometimes ridiculous, sometimes cringe-inducing, and sometimes shameless draw in Washington, D.C., Australia's men had found themselves sorted into Group D by the time the Village People closed the show. They will begin the tournament placed alongside eco-hosts the United States, South American foes Paraguay, and a
Yeah, but Australia is like they're going to lose, or they're not very good. They're not up there. They can't do it. They're not very. They're good. If on the day they can do miracles, create passes, have the tiki taka, good football.
European qualifier to be drawn from one of Turkey, Slovakia, Kosovo, or Romania. This means that, for the first time in their 7 trips to the global footballing showpiece, the Socceroos have not been placed with a former winner. They have not only avoided the likes of Argentina, Spain, and France from Pot 1, instead drawing a nation placed their zone of 3 co-hosts, but also dodged the likes of Norway in Pot 3 and Italy in Pot 4. Set to play on the American and Canadian West Coasts, the Socceroos will face relatively simple travel requirements, and will hopefully avoid the worst of the heat expected to hit North America in the middle of next year. Even if one doesn't take confidence from this, and memories of England's reaction to their easy 2010 draw serve as a cautionary tale in taking anything for granted at a World Cup, then it should at least soothe a few nerves. This isn't a redux of 2014, when Ange Postecoglou's side was handed the nightmare slate of Spain, the Netherlands, and Chile. And it is not difficult to contort one's mind to envision a scenario where Australia navigates a path to the knockout stages. Since Popovic's arrival, the Socceroos have further honed a style that is almost built for tournament football, historically demonstrated by the coaches. Success in leading outsiders Western Sydney to an Asian Champions League crown in 2014. Playing a well-organized, highly disciplined, and physical back five, the unheralded Australians may just be one of the most resolute sides at the World Cup. Especially if they're able to welcome back a healthy Alessandro Cercati and Harry Soutar. While the absence of the clinical edge characterizing their qualification form has further exposed the challenges they have in creating clear goal scoring chances, an ability to keep games close, avoid blowouts to goal difference, and grind out results is a significant asset in tournament football, especially in expanded one in which 8 of the 12 third-place teams will advance. Every nation at the World Cup is looking for silver linings, for the hope that fuels dreams and a belief that, just maybe, anything could be possible. Devotees of the United States and Paraguay, to say nothing of the European side that will ultimately round out the quartet, would be finding plenty of reasons to celebrate the placement of the Socceroos, mired in a 3-game losing run, in their group. As gauche as some of their supporters may be in expressing it, Theus has reason to be optimistic about not just topping this group, but making a deep run in the tournament. Not only are they playing at home, which has a demonstrated history, Qatar notwithstanding, of boosting a nation's performances, but they also feel the side packed with talent playing in some of the biggest leagues in the world. The US not only beat the Socceroos 2-1 in October, but also downed Paraguay 2-1 last month. Stylistically, Paraguay would appear just as ironclad as Australia. La Albrojas rode to the World Cup by a defense that conceded just 10 goals across 18 CONMEBOL qualifiers. Gustavo Alfara's side doesn't score a lot, netting just 14 times across this run. But the Socceroos will be facing down the weight of history when the two face off, having won just 9 times in 50 games against South American foes. Just 2 of those wins have come across the past 2 decades. The Socceroos will likely enter all 3 of their group stage fixtures as a slight underdog. Maybe this is a good thing, playing to their strengths and a mentality that Australian sides of any age or gender play best when given greater opportunity to sit back, defend well, and pick moments to break with speed and purpose. I think anyone that underestimates us will get a rude shock when it comes to those group games, Popovic said. One can envision a scenario where the Socceroos lose all 3 of their group games next June. But regardless of the odds, tags of favoritism, or any other factors, one can also realistically pontificate on them winning all 3. Or some mix of results that propels them into the knockouts. And that's a lot better than some alternatives.
Wow.
The 100 Best Female Footballers in the World 2025 Football, The Guardian. Thursday, the 4th of December 2025, 21.00 AEDT. First published on Monday, the 1st of December 2025, 21.29 AEDT. The 100 Best Female Footballers in the World 2025 Football, The 100 Best Female Footballers in the World 2025 Football, The Guardian. Thursday, the 4th of December 2020. The 100 Best Female Footballers in the World 2025 Football, The Guardian. Thursday, the 4th of December 2025, 21.00. Crystal Palace fans are literally fighting each other. How has it come to this? Crystal Palace, The Guardian. It should have been a night for Crystal Policy supporters to savor. About 1,500 officially made the trip to Strasbourg for their second away match of the Conference League group stage last week, although plenty more had gathered in the pretty Alsatian city famous for its expansive Christmas market. Yet while most were enjoying being part of Palace's first European campaign after May's FA Cup win, a tiny minority, as the club's statement the following day described them, had different ideas. Footage of bottles and chairs being thrown as two rival groups of supporters of the same club clashed before the game in one of the city's squares went viral. On X, Palace fans fighting each other in Strasbourg, read the message, not surprisingly sparking widespread confusion. The Guardian understands it was the culmination of a long-running feud between the Homestale Fanatics HF and Ultras group known for their vocal support and homemade tifos, and a collection of Palace fans said to have become increasingly antagonistic towards them. They are believed to be the group heard singing pro-Tommy Robinson songs and spotted with "Stop the Boats" flags during Palace's trips to Lublin to play Dynamo Kyiv in October and Fredrikstad for a playoff a month earlier. The group are thought to be more loosely organized than the HF and come from several different areas, including the Croydon suburb of New Addington, Crawley and Kent. Some of the HF have claimed they have been subjected to a sustained campaign of racial abuse from the rival group over several years, and the trouble is said to have begun when one of them was attacked without warning in Strasbourg. Racism will not be tolerated at Palace, the HF told The Guardian in a message also posted on their social media channels. There was another flashpoint at the stadium when another HF member was allegedly assaulted in the toilets, with a supporter on a Palace message board detailing what he witnessed. They wrote, "Came down for a drink 10 minutes before halftime and saw a young HF member being chased out of the toilet. The HF come down after halftime and it goes off. I'd seen the video of before the game and thought it was just a feud. However, on trying to break it up I was told clearly by a young HF member, 'How would you feel if you watch Palace and get called APK?' Doesn't paint the club in good light, and I'm not sure that's the end of this saga." A Palace statement the next day made no reference to racism, although it is understood the club are aware of the allegations but they were not witnessed by members of staff in Strasbourg. Palace doubt the authenticity of an X account that posted several offensive messages the next day, including numerous racist slurs directed towards the HF and references to the fight in the toilets. The account, which also posted messages with a knife emoji that warned, "A few blokes gonna get a good hiding," when Palace play against Shelburne in Dublin next Thursday in their next Conference League game, was deleted within 24 hours. Sources in the HF have insisted the account was genuine and they were made aware of its existence by the rival group. The Guardian has been told by multiple sources not connected to the HF that they have heard racist chants at Palace games this season, including one that makes a derogatory reference to the striker Jean-Philippe Mateta. One season ticket holder who attends matches with his two teenage sons asked to be moved after hearing what he described as a constant barrage of racist insults, directed mainly towards Palace players, including Tyrick Mitchell and Daichi Kamada, the Japan midfielder, during a game at Selhurst Park. Palace, based in one of the most ethnically diverse parts of the country, have a long history of opposing racism and make clear in their supporters' charter that their recommended sanction for racism is a 10-year ban for a first offense and an indefinite suspension in the event of a repeat. It is understood Palace are compiling evidence from Strasbourg, where there were 3 arrests for a separate incident, and will liaise closely with Irish police before the trip to Dublin. Palace have promised to punish any supporters involved in the violence in Strasbourg. A fan has been banned for misconduct during last Sunday's defeat by Manchester United, and other supporters are expected to face action once video footage has been reviewed. A Palace spokesperson said of the Strasbourg incident, "Whilst the vast majority of fans enjoyed the day and the game peacefully, we are aware of some small disturbances involving supporters of the club before the match in Strasbourg. This is regrettable and unacceptable. We will review the footage that's available and, where possible, identify those involved and take appropriate action. We would like to thank the town of Strasbourg and the club for their welcome and apologize for the actions of the tiny minority, who do not reflect the vast majority who came to support the club and were dismayed by their behavior." New York Times sues AI startup for illegal copying of millions of articles. Artificial intelligence AI. The Guardian. The New York Times issued an embattled artificial intelligence startup on Friday, accusing the firm of illegally copying millions of articles. The newspaper alleged Perplexity AI had distributed and displayed journalists' work without permission en masse. The Times said that Perplexity AI was also violating its trademarks under the Lanham Act, claiming the startup's generative AI products create fabricated content, or hallucinations, and falsely attribute them to the newspaper by displaying them alongside its registered trademarks. The newspaper said that Perplexity's business model relies on scraping and copying content, including paywalled material, to power its generative AI products. Other publishers have made similar allegations. The lawsuit is the latest salvo in a bitter, ongoing battle between publishers and tech companies over the use of copyrighted content without authorization to build and operate their AI systems. Perplexity in particular has become a target of multiple legal disputes and faces similar accusations from a number of publishers as it tries to aggressively build market share in a hyper-competitive market for generative AI tools. Cloudflare, one of the world's most prominent digital infrastructure companies, accused Perplexity earlier this year of hiding its web crawling activities and scraping websites without permission, a serious accusation with potential copyright implications. Perplexity denied the allegations. Perplexity has raised about $1.5 billion the past 3 years through multiple funding rounds, most recently closing a $200 million round in September that valued the company at $20 billion. It has attracted a variety of big-name investors, including Nvidia and Jeff Bezos, as money has flooded the AI industry. San Francisco-based Perplexity AI also faced a lawsuit from the Rupert Murdoch-owned Dow Jones and the New York Post. Multiple news outlets, including Forbes and Wired, have accused Perplexity of plagiarizing their content. In one case allegedly copying a Wired article about Perplexity's own plagiarism issues, the Chicago Tribune, Merriam-Webster Dictionary and Encyclopedia Britannica have all additionally filed lawsuits against Perplexity in recent months, accusing the company of copyright infringement. In October, social media company Reddit also sued Perplexity in New York federal court, accusing it and 3 other companies of unlawfully scraping its data to train Perplexity's AI-based search engine. Perplexity faces legal challenges from its fellow tech companies as well. Amazon last month filed a lawsuit against Perplexity over the search engine's AI agent shopping feature. The suit alleged that Perplexity was covertly accessing Amazon users' accounts and masking its AI browsing activities, which Perplexity has denied while accusing Amazon of bullying and attempting to stifle competitors. Perplexity did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment.
See that? Complexity didn't, what they say, says accessing Amazon user account and making its or AI browsing activities, which Perplexity has denied while accusing Amazon of bullying and attempting to stifle competitor Perplexity do not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment.
'26 World Cup draw. Argentina, Messi to start title defense against Algeria, ESPN. Argentina and Lionel Messi will begin their World Cup title defense against Algeria as they aim to become the first team to retain the crown since Brazil in 1962. 3-time champion Argentina also will play Austria and Jordan in Group J of the expanded 48-nation, 104-game festival, spread across 11 NFL stadiums plus 3 venues in Mexico and 2 in Canada. As we stated in 2022, there are no easy opponents, we have to play all the matches, Argentina coach Lionel Scaloni said after the draw. On paper, it's a group where we have to give our all to advance to the next round. Regarding Group J opponents, Scaloni said Austria had a great qualifying campaign, and he noted that Algeria has great players in a large youth academy that also feeds France and other countries. He also praised Algeria coach Vladimir Petkovic as a great one, recalling his time playing under him for Lazioin. 2013. Editor's Picks. USMNT draws Paraguay, Australia at World Cup. 19H ESPN News Services. De La Fuente man's WC Group sweep for Spain. 18H Adriana Garcia. 2026 World Cup draw. Thomas Tuchel, confident, despite England's difficult group. 19H ESPN. Scaloni had a big role in Friday's draw as he was responsible for bringing the World Cup trophy to the stage. Holding the cup in my hand again was wonderful, he said. Being able to touch it again is very moving. It's hard to explain. Top-ranked in 2010 champion Spain has been drawn into Group H, where its opponents are Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. The runner-up of this group will face Argentina if the Albiceleste win their group in a possible round of 32 matchup. Portugal star Cristiano Ronaldo, like Messi, is expected to play in a record 6th World Cup. Has Group K matches against Uzbekistan, Colombia and Congo DR, Jamaica or New Caledonia. If Portugal and Argentina win their groups, Ronaldo and Messi could meet in a quarterfinal at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm very satisfied with the draw. Portugal and Paris Saint-Germain midfielder Vitinha said. Colombia will clearly be the most difficult team. We know their players very well, like Luis Diaz, who is in fantastic form, and we know Richard Rios well. Brazil and Scotland will face each other for the 5th time at the FIFA World Cup. They share Group C with Haiti and Morocco. The African team, considered one of the toughest sides in the draw after finishing 4th in Qatar 2022 and boasting a great generation of players, will debut against Brazil. We have to win our 3 group games. Our idea is very clear. We have to be competitive throughout the World Cup, said Brazil coach Carlo Ancelotti. Asked if he has watched Neymar's last 2 games with Santos, where the former Barcelona and PSG star scored 4 goals. He said, I want to clarify that we are in December and the World Cup is in June. I will choose the team that will play in the World Cup in May. If Neymar deserves to be in the World Cup and is better than someone else, he will play. We want to try to win the group or at least get through to the next phase, Morocco coach Walid Regragui said. Since the 2022 World Cup, everyone wants to beat us. 4-time champion Germany plays Curaçao, the Ivory Coast and Ecuador in Group E. England, which won its only title in 1966, plays Croatia, Ghana and Panama in Group L. 2-time champion France plays Senegal, Norway and Bolivia, Ivory Coast and Panama in Group 1. Senegal beat defending champion France 1-0 in the 2002 opener. The United States starts Group B against Paraguay on June 12 in Inglewood, California. The Americans play Australia 6 days later at Seattle, then face Turkey, Romania, Slovakia or Kosovo on June 25 back at Sophie Stadium. Mexico hosts the tournament opener at Azteca Stadium in Mexico City on June 11 against South Africa in Group A, a rematch of the 2010 opener in Johannesburg. A 1-1 draw. El Tri then meets South Korea and closes the first round against the Czechia, Ireland, Denmark or North Macedonia. Other groups include G. Belgium, Egypt, Iran, New Zealand. B. Canada, Switzerland, Qatar and Italy, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Wallis or Northern Ireland. F. Netherlands, Japan, Tunisia and Sweden, Ukraine, Albania and Poland. 42 of the teams have been determined and 22 are competing in playoffs for 6 berths that will be decided March 31st. Winners and second-place nations from the 12 groups advance to the new round of 32 along with the top 8 third-place teams. All games from the quarterfinals on will be in the U.S., culminating in the July 19th final at East Rutherford, New Jersey. Specific sites for all group stage games and kickoff times were to be announced on Saturday. The ceremony for the draw included U.S. President Donald Trump receiving a Peace Prize awarded by FIFA, and balls with team names plucked from famous North American athletes Tom Brady, Shaquille O'Neal, Aaron Judge and Wayne Gretzky. Trump, Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum and Canada Prime Minister Mark Carney selected the balls of their own countries from bowls during a ceremony at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The lead-in show was almost as long as a soccer match, with the actual draw for the expanded 48-nation tournament starting in the 87th minute. The Associated Press contributed to this report. Jay Opatea vs. Hussein Sincara live updates from world title fight on the Gold Coast, ESPN. Search. Sports, NBA, NFL, football, NBL, AFL, NRL, cricket, rugby, Olympics, F1, NHL, MLB, World Baseball Classic, golf, tennis, NASCAR, IndyCar, ESPN West Bend, netball, NC, betting blog, horse racing, Disney Plus, subscribe, podcasts, tipping fantasy, tipping, ESPN Fantasy Football, AFL tipping. Jay Opatea records brutal knockout of Hussein Sincara to defend IBF and the ring titles. Close. Jake Michaels is a Melbourne-based sports writer who has worked for ESPN since 2013. He primarily writes on the AFL, but his assignments have taken him all around the world, covering everything from Formula 1 to Grand Slam tennis, championship boxing to international basketball, and the Olympic Games. Australian IBF and Ring Magazine Cruiserweight World Champion Jay Opatea claimed he fought like S in his latest title defense. And yet he still ended the bout with one of the most devastating knockouts of 2025. Fighting at the Gold Coast Convention Center against Turkish-German challenger Hussein Sincara. Opatea recovered from an early shot to the head and cut under his right eye to deliver a monster 8th-round knockout. Opatea threw a vicious left-hand shot that went straight through Sincara's defenses and instantly put him to sleep. Editor's picks. Opatea jumps at Jack after latest unification twist. 11 DAAP. There was serious concern for Sincara in the immediate aftermath of the fight as the 40-year-old veteran lay unconsciousness on the canvas for several minutes. He eventually regained consciousness and was helped to a stool by his trainer before ring formalities were completed. I feel like I just fought like S, to be honest, said Opatea in the ring after delivering the most brutal knockout of his career and improving to 29-0, 23 KOs despite opening the door to Sincara in the early rounds. You get these nights. We go back to the drawing board. I'm very disappointed in myself. I feel like I've let some people down with that performance. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm so pissed off. Opatea may be disappointed with his latest performance, albeit in victory, but he did enough to continue his ascension in the sport and division. The next logical step for the 30-year-old is a shot at unifying his belts. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, owner of the WBO and WBA straps, is the man he is desperate to fight, but the Mexican is set to battle American David Benavidez next May. Meanwhile, Swedish-born Badu Jack, who boxes out of Las Vegas, will put his WBC belt on the line in a highly anticipated rematch with Noel Mikhailian in Los Angeles on December 13th. We want the unification fights, said Opatea. We want Ramirez. I've been asking for them for a long time. Watch this space. The co-main event of the evening was taken out by the ever-impressive 21-year-old Max McIntyre, who stopped Jed Morris in the fourth round of their super middleweight fight to move to 9-0. Earlier in the night, rising Australian heavyweight Teramoana scored his fourth consecutive first-round win, this time against Mexico's German Garcia Montes. Meanwhile, former bantamweight world champion Jason Maloney got the job done against Herlan Gomez of the Philippines to record his first win in almost 2 years. Here's how fight night at the Gold Coast Convention Center unfolded. Terence Crawford dethroned over $300,000 fee, handing Britain's Shearer's title shot. Terence Crawford, The Guardian. Terence Crawford has been stripped of his World Boxing Council super middleweight world title after a dispute over unpaid sanctioning fees. A decision that puts Britain's Hamza Shearers in line to fight for the vacant belt. The WBC announced on Wednesday that it had removed the American star as its champion, 3 months after he shocked Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas to become undisputed at 168 lb. The organization said Crawford had not paid its required fees from that victory or from his previous bout in 2024, despite multiple attempts to contact him and his team. With the title now vacant, the WBC has ordered its interim champion Christian Mbili to face Shearers for the belt. The 26-year-old from Ilford made an explosive arrival to the division in July when he demolished local favorite Edgar Berlanga got the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in Queens. A win over Mbili would make Shearers Britain's newest world champion in one of boxing's glamour divisions. Crawford's situation reflects a familiar tension in the sport. Sanctioning bodies such as the
It's where they're at, where they're going. Here we are. Question all of it, please. Intermixhector, subscribe. Intermixhector, subscribe. Intermixhector, subscribe.
WBC, WBA, IBF and WBO all charge fighters a percentage of their purse, typically around 3% to compete for their belts. The fees have long been controversial, with critics arguing that the organizations wield significant power while operating with minimal oversight. In Crawford's case, the WBC says it lowered the fee for his fight against Alvarez from 3% to 0.6% because of his reported $50 million, £37.6 million purse, an amount believed to be roughly $300,000, and planned to send most of that money to a charity fund that supports retired fighters. Still, the 38-year-old Nebraskan reportedly did not respond to any communication regarding the payments. It's very unfortunate, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman said as he announced the ruling at the governing body's annual convention in Bangkok. He described the lack of reply as a slap in the face, though Crawford has not commented publicly and it remains unclear whether the missed payments were a deliberate choice or simply a case of a superstar with other priorities. What is clear is that his reign as undisputed champion has ended almost as quickly as it began. Crawford still holds the WBO, IBF and WBA belts, but has hinted he may drop back down to middleweight for future fights. For Shearers, the backroom politics matter far less than the opportunity that has materialized before him. Mbili, a French Cameroonian based in Montreal who is unbeaten in 30 bouts, is a high-pressure, high-volume fighter. While the 6 feet 3 inches Shearers brings physical advantages of 6.5 inches in height and 3 inches in reach. Their meeting, yet to be formally scheduled, promises to be one of the most significant British fights of the first half of next year. Already the first man of the four-belt era to fully unify the titles in 2 different divisions. Crawford did it in a third when scaled 2 weight classes and won a dominant 12-round unanimous decision over Alvarez before a record crowd of 70,482 at Las Vegas's Allegiant Stadium, an achievement without precedent in modern boxing. The 168 pounds title made him a 5-weight champion, having previously captured belts from 135 pounds through 154 lb. 2 weeks after the career-defining win, Crawford was involved in a contentious police stop in his hometown. Hours after Omaha held a parade in his honor, officers ordered him out of his car at gunpoint during a late-night traffic stop for alleged reckless driving. Video of the incident circulated widely and prompted the police chief to open an internal investigation. Crawford's security chief said he feared for their safety, while the mayor called for a full review and stressed the importance of maintaining trust between police and the community. No arrests were made. Way Machine Gun Australia Military News, Google search. Australia's military is actively modernizing its firepower, focusing on remote weapon systems RWS. Like the M134D minigun on robotic vehicles for battlefield advantage, while integrating new tech like the F9 handgun. And exploring directed energy weapons, all alongside ongoing training for conventional threats, including machine guns on new artillery like the S9 Huntsman. Recent news highlights trials of unmanned systems and advanced automation for weapons, showing a push towards future warfare tech while maintaining core capabilities. Key developments in Australian military machine gun capabilities. Remote weapon systems RWS.
We're getting up there with the best now. Getting up there with the best now. Knock his tooth out, mate. That fucking idiot. You're a champion. You're a champion. Gonna be a good person. Nice. Yeah, you like it. You like it. I like it. Oh no. Cyber attack. Cyber attack. Controversial. Cut it up, mate. Cut it up, mate. Question it. Question it. Question it.
The Army is testing M134D miniguns on modular robotic vehicles MRV during exercises like Talisman Sabre, using soldiers to remotely control them for enhanced force protection and combat experimentation. Light support weapons LSW. The F-89 Minimi remains a key infantry support weapon, used by special forces and parachute units.
The question, eh? Give a response. Take time.
Units, known for its versatility and effectiveness. Artillery integration. The newest 9 Huntsman self-propelled howitzers and their AS-10 resupply vehicles are being fitted with pintle-mounted machine guns for close defense. Future tech. Australia is also testing directed energy weapons lasers to counter drone threats, acknowledging the changing nature of conflict. Notes this Australian Defence Force News report. Procurement and training. The Australian soldiers get their hands on next-gen pistol, APDR. Australian Army soldiers have begun fielding the next-generation service pistol, marking a major milestone for the Land 300 Lethality System program. Brisbane's Gallipoli Barracks-based 70H Brigade is the first operational unit to be equipped with the new sidearm weapon system SWS after a successful testing program conducted by NIOA and Defence's Capability Acquisition and Sustainment Group CASG. The SWS consists of a 6-hour...
Alright, now they're going into the pistols. Well, how they... Okay, one, shoot the bullet. Okay. We have to know about it.
Sauer P320 pistol, Romeo 2 red dot sight, a white light torch, holster and retractable lanyard. It replaces the long-serving Browning Mk3 pistol and will be known in service as the F9 pistol. Additional equipment includes a simulation pistol for the WTSS Weapon Training Simulation System, a paint marking round conversion kit and red-colored weighted replica for use as part of Army Combative Program ACP training. Components of the system are supplied by...
I need sex. I need sex. Protest. I need sex. Anti-government. 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 Respect and honor. Anti-government. Anti-government. Respect and honor. How we gonna be? How we gonna be? Respect and honor. Breaker. It's gonna take us. It's gonna take us. Breaker. It's gonna take us. Breaker. It's gonna take us. Jump up and down. 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 Respect and honor. I love you. I love you. I love you. I need sex. I need sex.
By various Australian companies with NIOA bringing together products from 5 major suppliers to integrate and deliver to Defence as a fully certified mission system ahead of schedule. The successful fielding to Army's School of Infantry in December 2024 paved the way for the rollout of the F9 pistol to the first operational units of 70H Brigade in February. Soldiers have commenced conversion training, consisting of introductory lessons, dry manual handling drills, simulated firing using Defence's Weapon Training Simulation System.
Sorry.
System WTSS and live range firing.
Sorry.
NIOA Australia New Zealand CEO Ben James said NIOA's project team was on hand throughout the...
Oh, it's doing it. Stop it. You want me to talk? Boca Junior, Español, soy chileno. People live in Australia. Hear the economics and everything. You know what I mean? Like if a person smile, you smile, I smile. we all smile. The whole world would be much better if we smile. It would be like medicine. Be nice. Respect, mindfulness. Have all these strategy words into love, into care, into help me put it all together, mate. You know what I mean? I was going to go to the coffee the other day where they said that old lady on the wheelchair. Might go to the coffee one day too. Germany.
Rollout to provide armor or familiarization training. Expertise and advice as well as validating the training against the analysis of training requirements delivered earlier as part of the project. Earning high praise from defense. With CASG coordinator.
Alcohol, party on, alcohol.
Coordinating the rollout, and NIOA personnel delivering directly from our facility to user units. The distribution of the F9 pistol to the first units has been a huge success, he said. Planning is already underway for the next phases of the rollout, which will see the majority of units Australia-wide receiving their new F9 pistols by December. For editorial inquiries, contact editor Kim Bergman at kim.bergman@venturamedia.net. For advertising inquiries, contact Group Sales Director Simon Hadfield at simon.hadfield@venturamedia.net. Drone swarms and their potential within the Australian Defence Force Air and Space Power Centre. Lucas Page, Australian Defence Force. The onset of the war in Ukraine saw one of the most dramatic shifts in combined arms warfare since the introduction of the machine gun. This shift is attributed to the wide-scale introduction of drones to the modern battlefield. Cognate al. 2024. Principally, the conflict is demonstrating drones pioneering new capabilities in reconnaissance, close air support and strategic strike with virtually zero risk to the operator. Furthermore, Air Marshal Chipman, former Chief of the Air Force, announced on the eve of the 2023 Avalon Air Show that Australia needs to consider and invest in low-cost mass-produced LCMP drones. The announcement acknowledged the sharp rise in the use of drones and their significant contribution to air power. Critically cheap UAVs have significantly lowered the bar for entry to high-level military capability. Arnold. 2022 previously only enjoyed by large well-funded militaries. Consequently, Australia must now innovate on the technology rather than simply follow global trends for the Australian Defence Force ADF to maintain its competitive and technological edge. One way for the ADF can achieve this is by moving from single drone systems to the introduction of swarms of drones acting in unison, combining their roles and capabilities for a collective output greater than the sum of its parts. Single drone systems versus drone swarms. Currently, an operator is limited to flying one drone at a time, resulting in a system with zero redundancy and singular capabilities, reconnaissance or strike. For example, multiple drones require multiple operators. However, in contrast, a drone swarm is directed by one operator and could be assisted by artificial intelligence AI, Wrigley and Mantelasi, 2023. With AI, the drone swarm can fly autonomously to a target to carry out multiple tasks concurrently. Electronic warfare, reconnaissance and strike, for example, or alternatively enable multiple simultaneous strikes on high-value assets. Autonomous swarm control. There are multiple methodologies for controlling a swarm of drones. However, a promising approach is distributed control characterized by 3 rules of separation, coherence and avoidance. Reynolds, 1987. This sees the drones, linked together, like a spider web and are free to move in a region of air. This gives increased flexibility for dynamic environments and critically allows for seamless joining or removal from the swarm, enabling the swarm to continue even through combat losses. Swarm dynamic target tracking and prediction. For a swarm to autonomously intercept a maneuvering target, the swarm must be able to track and predict the future motion of its target. Traditional prediction methodologies usually see the path be matched to mathematical curves or go through reinforcement learning methods to learn the path slowly. However, modern techniques struggle with 2 key areas: finding a balance between accuracy versus computing speed, and secondly, a requirement to be extensively tuned and trained in development before being deployed. To achieve this requirement, the drones require the recognition and memory of every possible target it could face to be accurate, which is a tedious and costly process. These challenges inspired the development of a new AI model referred to as biologically inspired fuzzy brain emotional learning (BFBEL). Muthusamai et al. 2024. This AI model works by replicating the emotional regulation of mammals by artificially representing the brain functions of the amygdala and orbitofrontal cortex to learn and drive decision-making. This process enables the AI to build a behavioral model of the system it is analyzing in real time without external training to adapt the system to its changes. This model proved to have extreme adaptability and control. However, fundamentally the model was reactive to decision-making rather than predictive. However, new research redesigned and extended the model, BFBELP, to enable future prediction for more efficient control of drone swarms. Page, 2024. The BFBELP enabled the swarm to build behavioral models on a target's complex and erratic motion, replicating evasion in real time during the flight and achieve target intercept while still avoiding obstacles, critically without any human input. Furthermore, the swarm then continued to track the target from a designated loitering altitude, simulating reconnaissance capabilities. Page, 2024. Considerations and potential applications. Adaptable behavioral models such as BFBELP hold profound potential to enable swarms of drones or other UAS systems to be controlled in large scale operations. With the Defense Strategic Review (DSR) indicating threats within the region, the ADF could potentially face overwhelming numbers of light, medium and heavy armored vehicles, While our current anti-armor weapons are highly effective and combat-proven, they will struggle to counter threats at this scale, which could be mediated through the use of drones. Furthermore, studies from Center for Strategic and International Studies, 2023, highlight that the Western military-industrial base will face significant supply shortages during a full-scale near-peer war, given Australia's lack of domestic advanced missile manufacturing. Our geographic isolation and strategic operating environment, this shortage will be extremely hard felt. However, the war in Ukraine has shown that advanced strike and reconnaissance capabilities can be achieved at extremely low costs through harnessing drones, which could equally be exploited by Australia in such a scenario. Its implementation is alluded to by the former Chief of the Royal Australian Air Force, Air Marshal Chipman, will enable the ADF to employ asymmetrical tactics and strategically reshape our geopolitical environment. It will enable the ADF to apply exceedingly disruptive and tactically devastating actions within a high-intensity battle space while reducing risks to our most valuable assets, our people. Conclusions. The success of drones in recent conflicts highlights that they will form an integral part of any future fighting force. However, despite the profound potential of drone swarms, large questions are still being raised about their suitability and receive comparably little attention in current military doctrine. Nevertheless, if Australia wishes to maintain and regain its competitive edge, the proliferation of innovative technologies such as drone swarms must be given greater consideration for the ADF's future in our warfighting capabilities. Australian government tries to remove overseas claim from ADF sexual violence class action. More than 1,000 Australian Defence Force women have registered for a class action against the Commonwealth alleging systemic sexual abuse, harassment and discrimination. But the Commonwealth is seeking to remove any incidents alleged to have occurred while ADF women were deployed overseas from the claim. Lawyers on both sides provided further details on the case in the first hearing of the unprecedented legal action in the federal court today. There are 4 applicants in the class action, whose names are withheld for legal reasons. The class action was announced in October, and any woman subjected to sexual violence, sexual harassment or discrimination while working in the ADF between November 12, 2003 and May 25, 2025, is eligible to participate. The class action has been filed by Australian law firm JGA Saddler, backed by global litigation funder Omni Bridgeway. In the first 48 hours after it was launched, more than 1,000 women registered. Kate Eastman SC, the lawyer representing the Commonwealth, and Kylie Namchong SC, representing JGA Saddler, will seek a ruling on whether incidents alleged to have occurred overseas can be included. The issue will be discussed further at a hearing in late March 2026. Our ADF women deserve a safe workplace whether it is in Australia or on overseas deployment, JGA Saddler lawyer Joshua Aylward said following today's hearing. It is disgraceful to think the ADF want to say that the sex discrimination laws do not apply in international waters or overseas, and effectively wipe their hands of incidents of sexual violence, harassment and assault just because it didn't happen on home soil. Veterans Affairs and Defense Personnel Minister Matt Keogh said sexual misconduct within the force was unacceptable wherever it occurs. The Commonwealth has also been accused of using tactics to delay the case from moving forward. The federal government has shown its true colors in court today. It is a shameful day when the ADF decides to fight their own members on legal technicalities, Aylward said. Defending, delaying and taking legal technicalities is not the conduct of a responsible government, and Australians should be disgusted at this behavior. The ADF has been contacted for comment. During a National Press Club address today, Keogh announced an inquiry into how pervasive sexual assault and sexual harassment are within the ADF. The inquiry will investigate barriers to reporting sexual misconduct, following through with complaints and the pressing of charges. It will include the investigative powers of military police, barriers faced by civilian police investigating sexual assault on Defence Force bases, recidivism, decisions not to prosecute, conviction rates, sentencing outcomes and penalties. Readers seeking support can contact Lifeline on 131114 or Beyond Blue on 1300 224636. Suicide Callback Service 1300 659 467. Support is available from the National Sexual Assault, Domestic and Family Violence Counseling Service 1800 RESPACT 1-800 737 732. For under 25s, Kids Helpline 1-800 55 1800. Let's turn to some breaking news in Canberra, where Australian veterans and their families will hear the government's long-awaited response to the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide. Federal Politics reporter Claudia Vidoljak joins us live. Claudia, what can you tell us?
Well, Kate, of the 122 recommendations made by the Royal Commission, the federal government has just responded in the last couple of minutes, confirming it will adopt 104. This is its response to an inquiry spanning more than 3 years and uncovering harrowing evidence about suicide rates and cultural problems within the Australian Defence Force. It found Australia has lost more serving and ex-serving personnel to suicide in the last 20 years than in battle in Afghanistan and and Iraq over the same period of time. In a bid to stop another life from being lost, a new agency will be established, as well as a brain injury program focusing on veteran wellbeing. That will include offices set up in areas with heavy veteran populations and run by staff who have a defence background. One of the biggest issues the Royal Commission found was an alarming rate of sexual violence within the ADF, close to 800 assaults reported in the last 5 years. Now, this inquiry lending itself to yet another inquiry announced this morning that will specifically look into military sexual violence. The federal government saying the rate is unacceptable, and it will commission an external, independent and expert inquiry that will investigate the effectiveness of the military justice system and anonymous reporting options, as well as what is behind the numbers. Defence will also adopt a policy of mandatory discharge for anyone convicted of sexual offences. Attention also on recruitment processes. Defence will now consider emotional intelligence when selecting leaders. Now, to oversee these major systemic reforms, a new independent body will be created aimed at improving suicide prevention, and soon we will hear from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese formally responding. Kate.
Claudia Vodoljak, thank you.
We are going to begin with some breaking news from Sydney's CBD, where an e-bike rider has died after colliding with a garbage truck. It happened at 6 a.m. on George Street at Ultimo. Paramedics desperately tried to save the man, who was aged in his 30s, but he died at the scene. The driver of the garbage truck, a 28-year-old man, was taken to hospital for mandatory testing. 3 of the 4 lanes heading out of the city are now closed. Disgraced former Prince Andrew has been officially stripped of his honours amid a delay to his eviction from his 30-room mansion. Live to 9 Europe correspondent Hannah Sinclair in London. Hannah, does Andrew have any titles left?
Well, Jane, he's now lost all of his royal titles, but he is still clinging on to one more. He is still a Vice Admiral in the Royal Navy, an honorary rank given to him after serving 22 years and fighting in the Falklands War. The British government says it is working to remove that title at the request of the King. As for Andrew's honours, in the Order of the Garter and the Knight Grand Cross of the Victorian Order, they have now been formally cancelled, making him a commoner. But the former prince will still get one last Christmas at Royal Lodge, with his eviction and permanent move into exile delayed until next year. His new neighbour, Prince William, has been keeping busy away from home. He's been in Wales speaking at an investment summit, as there have been some festive frustrations surrounding his new place, Forest Lodge. Some families aren't happy with a new security exclusion zone surrounding William and Kate's new mansion, which now means they have to detour 1.5 k's to get to a nearby shop selling Christmas trees. Jane?
Hannah, thank you.
WA's Fisheries Minister is under fire tonight for failing to front a key meeting with fishing families blindsided by the state's new demersal ban. Local fishmongers today warning the move will drive up prices and hit coastal communities hard.
Conway Chalice is no stranger to casting a line, selling seafood from his mobile trailer for more than a decade.
A couple of packs of that. And that one as well?
Yes, please. Sure. But this week's fish ban announcement has left him reeling.
Well, it came as a bit of a shock. I think a lot of people have been blindsided. It's going to have pretty big ramifications.
The state government introducing major bans for recreational and commercial fishers. From Kalbarri to Augusta, recreational demersal fishing set to shut until 2027. For commercial operators, is closed for good. The major change aimed at boosting critically low stocks of pink snapper, jewfish and red emperor.
Some of the trawl industry, MGK, have basically been abolished up.
So how do you get it to pollinize it? How do you just go buy it,
In the northern region, so they supply places like Catalanos, who then distribute their fish to other retailers.
Charter fishing for demersals around Perth also banned, the opposition slamming the fisheries minister, accusing her of dodging a meeting with fishing communities last night.
They were wondering where was she.
They would have loved to have 10 minutes just so she could hear the plight of what is going to happen to their businesses.
A spokesperson for Fisheries Minister Jackie Jarvis says the state government held a fisheries forum here at Parliament in October, acknowledging it's the toughest decision she's had to make.
Look, I expect that prices will raise and we'll probably see more imported fish coming into the country.
Everything's gone up in price, meat and chicken as well, and so I guess it would mean that we'd spend less money on fish.
The average Aussie eats 14 kilos of seafood a year, but to meet demand, up to 70% of what we buy is imported. And right now, Australia lacks laws stopping seafood tied to illegal fishing, environmental damage, or worker exploitation from landing on our shelves.
And it's just not the same quality as the local court stuff.
Andrew Dew,
have a great day.
9 News.
A teenage boy is recovering in hospital tonight after he was hit by a car while riding an e-bike in Claremont. Let's go live to Yvonne Ardley at Perth Children's Hospital. Yvonne, how is he doing?
Natalia, the 14-year-old...
As we go to where a dozen families are homeless after a fierce, fast-moving blaze destroyed the small community of Coolawong in a matter of hours. It sits north of Woy Woy and south of Gosford on the state's central coast. This is a live shot of the area right now. Thick plumes of smoke continue to blanket the area, and you can see the extent of the damage as well. The emergency is far from over. A short time ago, the blaze jumped Woy Woy Bay, where residents are tonight on high alert. We have reporters at the scene and with authorities tonight, and shortly we'll speak to Premier Chris Minns. Massilia Eiley begins our coverage from Coolawong.
In the picturesque suburb of Coolawong, homes burning to the ground. It started close to 1 p.m. in one street and quickly spread across the suburb, the speed taking everyone by surprise.
Yes, we were evacuated. They told us that we have to get out, take some clothes, whatever we can.
This is intermixhector, reaction videos, mashup news, whatever you want to call it.
Out there and had a look too, and I thought, oh my God, we've got to... It's on top of us.
Homes dotted in thick bushland had no escape, tearing through property after property, flames licking towering gums. Corrugated iron roofs destroyed, the neighbourhood smothered in acrid black smoke. Up the hill, another home is consumed by flames.
Today, extreme fire weather with hot, dry conditions. That weather has really affected the fire behaviour in a negative way, and it hasn't allowed firefighters to have the time to protect all the properties that they could.
As homes along Glenrock Parade went up. But this man isn't giving up. Hosing down his home, police eventually convince him to leave.
A confronting day, particularly for the Central Coast. This is a warning for everybody to follow the advice from the RFS, from New South Wales, police, from fire and rescue. We need to make sure we do everything we possibly can to protect lives, particularly over the next 12 to 24 hours as wind directions change.
The fire attacked from the air, on the ground, crews reloading in Brisbane waters to continue the fight as residents count the cost. Take a look at the extent of the damage to some of these homes. This one behind me here has been burnt to the ground, and while firefighters have had to keep moving to other homes that are at higher risk, there are still small patches of fire that continue to burn. This man already knows his house is gone.
We made it. We're still here. We start again. Everything's gone, like our memories and everything. All our clothes, all our possessions.
Massilia Eiley, 9 News.
And Massilia joins me now. Massilia, what's happening as we come to you right now?
Good evening to you, Mark. Well, we've just heard within the last few minutes or so that the fire here at Coolawong has been downgraded to a watch and act level. That's the first time that's happened since this fire started at around 1 o'clock this afternoon, and residents have been told to monitor conditions. I'm just going to show you, we're starting to see just the extent of the damage here this afternoon. You can see this house here just behind us has been destroyed, the car at the front torched, as well as several other cars, and you can also see small pockets of fire that are still alight this evening. And if I take you here to the left side, you can see a number of trees have been burnt, the side of the road charred, and even further down the road you can see fire and rescue have just started going door to door from home to home to begin surveying the extent of the damage to now. Now, of course, dozens of residents remain locked out this evening, and a reminder to those residents that there are a number of evacuation centres that have been set up at Hawks Nest, Merriwa and West Gosford. We've also heard from the Prime Minister this afternoon, who sent a note saying he's thinking to all of those across New South Wales affected by the bushfires, and he's thanking all of those emergency workers. Of course, very much a long night ahead for the people of Coolawong, Mark.
Celia, it came up so quickly. Thank you for that. Well, let's go to James Wilson now, who's at Woy Woy Bay. James, the emergency where Massilia was now appears to have moved where you are.
That's right, Mark. It's jumped the water, those embers travelling a kilometre to me at Woy Woy Bay. I'll show you where I am on a wharf looking back towards Coolawong. This is the southern end of the township in the bushland. You can see that fire just slowly chewing up what's left of the bush. But as I mentioned, around an hour ago, those embers travelled across the water and landed here in Woy Woy Bay. And you can see in the distance, just over there where that helicopter's flying above, it's caught on some bushland just metres from homes. There's a few hundred homes over here and a few hundred more over at Fegans Bay. This whole area is now in lockdown, essentially. Too dangerous to leave. So as we drove in, we saw plenty of residents hosing down their roofs and basically going through the motions that Coolawong went through from around midday today. And if you want to know exactly how populated this area is, there's only around 200 metres of water that separates Woy Woy, a town of 13,000 people, from the fire danger tonight. So firefighters have their work cut out. It's still blustery and breezy, still around 30 degrees as well, and this danger is expected to continue to rise over this side of the water for some time yet. Mark?
James, just quickly before you go, what sense are you getting from the people affected there? Are they staying with their homes, or are they coming down by the water's edge there?
Look, there does feel like somewhat of complacency. Plenty of families coming down to check out what's been happening on the other side. People on jet skis as well. But just before we went to air, police came down and reminded people that they need to go home and shelter in place. That is the official advice from emergency services, to get back home and protect your property. It's not a game here. This isn't fun or a tourist attraction. This is a serious fire emergency. And I think emergency services are really trying to remind people about that tonight.
Okay, James, we'll leave you there. Thank you for that. And the Premier Chris Minns joins us now from RFS headquarters. Mr. Minns, thanks for your time. You've spoken to fireys there. What sense do you get from them? Are they on top of this, or are they still worried?
Yeah, look, it's been downgraded in Coolawong, which is good news, but it has jumped Woy Woy Bay into Fegans Bay. So firefighters are on site containing that blaze as best as they can. But as your reporter just noted, it's very important residents listen to emergency service personnel. If they give a direction, please follow it. This only works if everybody listens to emergency warnings. And if you're in harm's way, the direction is there for a reason. So download the Hazards Near Me app. Please be careful, particularly over the next 12 hours, as wind and weather conditions could very well change.
Premier, are you happy with what's being done for those people who have been left homeless?
Well, look, I mean, we need to rally around those families now. At least 12 homes have been damaged or destroyed. It's devastating for them on the eve of Christmas for this to happen. Emergencies, evacuation centres have been set up, but the truth of the matter is we've got 1,100 firefighters, most of whom are volunteers, that are deployed across New South Wales. Many of them will work through the night for no money, Mark, to keep us safe, and I'll be thinking of them this evening in a very challenging environment.
And Premier, before you go, did you get a sense from the fireys there that this fire at Coolawong came up so quickly?
Yeah, incredibly quick. It wasn't a fire that had been running for hours or days. It shot up that hill as a result of...
Oh, no. operated.
Remote weapons technology tested on Talisman Sabre Defense. The 1st Armoured Regiment 1AR has transformed this year to provide the Australian Army with a combat experimentation group designed to test and trial emerging technology to gain battlefield advantage. During exercise Talisman Sabre, B Squadron from 1AR traveled from Adelaide to Townsville to test the modular robotic vehicle MRV with remote weapon stations and first-person view drones FPVD for the first time in a combat field environment. The MRV currently uses an M113 armored personnel carrier as a test bed with 50 caliber machine guns or M23D minigun remote weapon stations attached. This technology allows soldiers to control the vehicle and weapon station using a remote control from up to 1,000 meters away. Similarly, FPVD are operated using a headset and hand controller. Officer Commanding Major Tom Fisher said these drones could travel up to 20 kilometers from the operator, reaching speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour with the ability to provide a strike function when weaponized with a payload. It allows the warfighter to strike targets at range without placing themselves at risk, Major Fisher said. Embedding within the 3rd Brigade's battle group Cappying, the 1AR team and their new equipment were tested in a range of tactical scenarios, providing commanders with new opportunities on the battlefield. Being able to implement the MRV and FPVD into a battle group, conducting tactical actions and seeing how other people would utilize the equipment is really exciting, Major Fisher said. The capability is quite early on, but looking to the future, this kind of capability can bring a heavy amount of firepower to bear without putting soldiers in harm's way, which is really promising. Here we've been able to test how we fight with that technology, which essentially reduces the risk to people. Commanding Officer of the 3rd Battalion and Battle Group Cappying, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Ellis, said testing the new technology was an opportunity to employ new tactics and enhance his soldiers' survivability. Here we've been able to test how we fight with that technology, which essentially reduces the risk to people, Lieutenant Colonel Ellis said. We don't have to put our soldiers in harm's way, and it can also be employed to soak up the attention of the enemy while our people move forward. When new technology is delivered by Army headquarters through the Army Accelerated Capability Pipeline. 1AR conducts initial training and testing in Kultana Training Area, South Australia. Major Fisher said the humid and undulating terrain of Townsville Field Training Area was in stark contrast to the dry plains of Kultana, which allowed his team to challenge the technology and push it to its limits. Because of the way the vehicles communicate to each other, performance is very terrain dependent. So we are experiencing some difficulties with terrain in Townsville that is quite vegetated, he said. However, as with all experimentation, even if you have a failure, it's still a win, because you know the limitations of the equipment. Members of the regiment also deployed to Shoalwater Bay Training Area during exercise Talisman Sabre to test uncrewed ground vehicles and hyper-teaming drones. On return to Adelaide, 1AR will evaluate how the equipment performed and whether it will progress to implementation across wider Army.
Wow. Alright. I gotta go now. That's all I got. Was so good? Mixed news. Ridiculous. Hey, yo, adios amigos. Be nice, be one to another. Hey. We're gonna wake up in the morning. Oh yeah. Okay, ciao, intermixhector.